Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you. I hope to be able to help in any way that I possibly can with the important work that you're doing. As you noted in your introduction, I had served in the Nixon, Carter, Ford, and Reagan administrations, so brought some experience to the position of commissioner when I entered on duty. I came back in the Clinton administration recognizing some of the challenges that INS faces and committed to wide-ranging agency reform. INS, as you know, has widely divergent areas of responsibility that had suffered from a history of neglect by administrations and Congresses of both parties. During my time at INS, that began to change as serious attention was devoted to building the capabilities the agency needed to carry out its mission effectively. At the same time, even under the best immigration controls, most of the September 11 terrorists would still be admitted to the United States today. That is because they had no criminal records, no known terrorist connections, and had not been identified by intelligence methods for special scrutiny. The innovation al-Qaeda introduced is clean operatives who can go through immigration controls undetected. Immigration measures are an important tool in the war against terrorism, but they are not effective by themselves in identifying terrorists of this new type. The immigration system can only set up gateways and tracking systems that exclude terrorists about whom the United States has some information. And it can enable authorities to find clean operatives already in the country if new information is provided by intelligence agencies. The immigration and the intelligence systems must work together for either to be effective. To that end, the lead domestic security responses to terrorism should be strengthened intelligence and analysis, compatible information systems and information sharing, and vigorous law enforcement and investigations. Improved immigration controls and enforcement are needed, and they can support good anti-terrorism enforcement, but they are not enough by themselves. Let me first give a brief overview of my tenure. With more than 10 million immigrants, the 1990s rank as one of the 2 decades of highest immigration in American history. These numbers represent millions of transactions daily. And those transactions were made by an agency that suffered from chronic overwork, underfunding, and outdated practices. Early in 1993, 3 high-profile immigration crises occurred in close succession. They were the first bombing of the World Trade Center, the multiple drownings when a Chinese smuggling ship washed ashore off Long Island, and shootings outside the CIA headquarters that killed government workers. All 3 involved people applying for political asylum in the United States. Beginning with fixing this broken asylum system, border control became the highest priority for the new administration from the outset. During my tenure, the INS budget grew from approximately $1.6 billion to $4 billion. Personnel grew from about 18,000 to 32,000. With growth at that scale came enormous management demands. In addition, Congress enacted a series of sweeping new laws beginning in 1996 that placed ambitious new mandates on INS. The 1996 Act alone required writing more than 70 regulations and training more than 20,000 staff. All generated unplanned, sizable new workloads. Other major efforts that we faced included successive humanitarian emergencies, such as Haitian and Cuban boat lifts, a tripling of detention capacity, dramatic increases in the removal of criminal aliens, and a citizenship backlog reduction program that foundered, requiring top-to-bottom reforms that demanded attention for several years. Overall, Congress supported the administration in providing increased resources for INS and promoting new strategies and technology. Still, the public mood was one of growing anti-immigration sentiment. The administration had basic immigration policy disagreements with Congress. The relationship between INS and its congressional oversight committees was often contentious. Against that backdrop, let me summarize a few items of most relevance to counterterrorism. First, border control. The broad goal that I set forth for INS was to prevent illegal immigration and facilitate legal immigration. Preventing illegal immigration incorporated all abuses of the immigration system. We began with asylum reform. But we then continued with border control as the agency's highest priority during my entire tenure. Our definition of the nation's borders was comprehensive: land borders with Mexico and Canada, our ports of entry, and our consulates abroad. The transformations that were the most visible occurred along the southwest border, but INS's agenda always encompassed a comprehensive view of our borders. That meant that ports of entry, POEs, had to be a key element of border protection. Among the most meaningful changes that we implemented in our port of entry operations are inspector staffing increases, improvements to the lookout system, data share efforts that Ambassador Ryan has described with consular affairs, facilitation programs that created more secure travel, such as InSpass, which was the first use of biometrics, Sentry, which is electronic dedicated commuter lanes at the border, and advanced passenger information, which is the sharing of manifests from airlines. We were able to get to 80% of airline passengers having been checked before they arrived at our ports of entry in the United States. All of these things are elaborated in more detail in my testimony. These improvements have been significant. They have strengthened border control and facilitation, but they all address issues of admitting people to the country. There have never been systematic departure controls from the United States. Without them, INS's knowledge of who and how many people have left as required and who did not has been incomplete. To meet this need, Congress called for an entry-exit system in its 1996 legislation. INS designed, tested, and implemented the front end of such a system at certain airports, but the major stumbling block for entry-exit has been the land borders, a problem that remains unresolved today. Next to border control, technology was my highest priority. In 1993, less than 20% of INS employees had access to any automation. When I left, more than 95% had a terminal at their workstation and relied on automated information to carry out their tasks. The technology projects beyond those that I have described that have a bearing on counterterrorism include the following. IDENT. This is the system that was created in 1994 for the southwest border. It is the automated biometric system that contains a photo and 2 index finger fingerprints. The technology now meets many immigration needs where identity must be verified for both enforcement and benefit-granting purposes. New green cards and laser visas. In 1998, INS began replacing with a new green card a technology that incorporated state-of-the-art security features, including biometrics. The technology was also used to produce laser visas, which Consular Affairs issued to Mexican nationals. The replacement program consolidated a large number of documents that INS had historically issued, and the purpose included reducing misuse and counterfeiting of documents. Foreign student tracking. In response to FBI concerns, INS proposed a new student system in 1995. Congress mandated it in 1996. INS tested a pilot in 1997 and 98 and was on track for implementation in 2003 as the legislation required, assuming that funding issues which were unresolved could get resolved. These programs and other technology infusions represented major improvements that INS badly needed to be effective. But by the late 1990s, appropriations did not keep pace. Numerous candidates for new systems development that could yield significant continuing improvements had to be kept on hold. Nevertheless, it's not databases that catch terrorists. Had student tracking, for instance, been in place before 9/11, it's still highly unlikely that the terrorist with a student visa who did not appear for classes would have been arrested by INS. That's because it would take far greater numbers of officers than INS has ever had to actually locate and take custody of those who have overstayed or who have violated the terms of their visas. Instead, what good information systems can do is cultivate a culture of compliance with our immigration requirements, and they can provide very useful information that law enforcement needs when following investigative leads, including leads in counterterrorism investigations. I see the yellow light is on, so let me say that there are other actions that are, of course, outlined in my testimony. Among them are serious refocusing of our interior enforcement, which included focusing on criminal matters that would have included terrorism, and restructuring of the INS, which would have been a major effort, which we presented to Congress in 1998, and which included upgrading and incorporating as law enforcement our activities at the ports of entry. That, too, is an issue that still remains undone. Let me conclude by saying that by 2000, INS had become a larger, better, more professional agency, especially in the areas of its most critical responsibilities. Many of the changes were transformational. All constituted critical building blocks for properly managing the immigration system in the years ahead. But it is my strong conviction that on the issues of counterterrorism, the agency's focus and record were where they should have been. We understood that our role was to have the systems and structures in place to prevent wrongdoers from getting into the country. We did that by pressing hard for strong, comprehensive border controls, modern information systems, and interagency and international coordination. The measures we took and the systems we put into place would have identified the 9/11 terrorists had INS known who to be looking for. Moreover, the major technology and systemic improvements in immigration control that have been made since 9/11 have been to fund and give higher priority to the initiatives and the technology that we developed. Thank you very much.